Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you very much for your patience. Welcome to this media conference of the governing Jamaica Labour Party. I am Senator Abka Fitz Henley. My right, Senator Marlon Morgan, senior member of the Jamaica Labour Party's Communication Task Force. We call this media conference to address matters concerning governance, in particular the appointment of Mr. Dennis Chung as Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigation Division, the FID, which has been resisted by the opposition PNP. The Jamaica Labour Party condemns as vulgar and inappropriate the action taken by the PNP in the vicinity of Hero Circle this morning in relation to the appointment of Dennis Chung as Chief Technical Director of the FID. Let's examine some facts. Dennis Chung was appointed as Chief Technical Director of the FID following a process which was coordinated by the Public Services Commission, the PSC, which involved advertisement, interviews, and selection. The PSC was established many decades ago in order to ensure independent superintendence and coordination of appointments to the public sector. The protest organized by the PNP today is to be condemned by all well-thinking Jamaicans, as it is tantamount to an inappropriate and vulgar attack on the PSC and an out-of-order challenge to due process. That's the position of the Jamaica Labour Party. Issues have been put into the public domain concerning comments made by Mr. Chung on matters when he was a public commentator. Our view is, to the best of our knowledge, Mr. Chung has not made any comment which should compel the administration to acquiesce to calls by the PNP for it to make the unusual and improper intervention of interfering with a meritorious process coordinated by the PSC. The government of Jamaica, the government of the Jamaica Labour Party, will not be bullied to act inappropriately and to intervene an established process. We welcome the view of the private sector organization of Jamaica that Mr. Chung is a suitable candidate for the post. In fact, the words "a great selection" were used. Well-known attorney at law and public affairs commentator Mr. Gordon Robinson is right when he opined that Dennis Chung is as qualified to be FID Chief Technical Director as anybody else. The suggestion that Mr. Chung lacks the qualification for the post lacks merit. It must be noted, I have not heard this in the media, but it must be noted that at least 5 individuals who have served either in a permanent capacity or acting the top job at the FID have not a direct law enforcement qualification. In fact, like Mr. Chung, 2 of those individuals have credentials in accounting at the level of a master's degree. One had qualification in business administration and economics. One is an attorney at law with a master's in business administration, and the other had qualifications in ICT. The Chung has served across several administrations, including when he was recruited by the ex-Simsibila administration to turn around the National Solid Waste Management Agency. His record of service in the area of finance across several private sector boards and entities, including the Bank of Jamaica, speak for themselves. We again reiterate the Jamaica Labour Party administration We condemn the attack on the appointment made following a process carried out by the PSC and will not be strong-armed into an inappropriate move. PNP, by virtue of their public utterances and actions taken in the vicinity of National Hero Circle this morning, conducting itself in a reckless and dangerous manner in respect of this matter. I now turn over to Senator Morgan for some comments.
Thank you, Senator Fitz Henley. Good morning, members of the media. Good morning, Jamaicans all. Through well thought out policies, legislation, and appropriate provision of resources, the Andrew Holness-led Jamaica Labour Party government is leading Jamaica into a brighter, safer, and more prosperous future. The PNP is exploiting cynicism and indeed the ignorance on the part of some of its supporters in particular to undermine the progress being made by the government in improving the quality of life of the Jamaican people. While the PNP will try, the Jamaica Labour Party will not stand idly by and allow them to distract the Jamaican people from the undeniable and incontrovertible achievements of the government in service to you, the people of Jamaica. The days of fomenting division and instability through unwarranted and desperate politically contrived actions, including unwarranted protests, are over. The government is delivering for the people of Jamaica and will continue to do so, whether in easing their cost of living burden, creating jobs, increasing support to the most vulnerable among us, reducing crime, reducing poverty, increasing the minimum wage, and improving the overall delivery of public services. Our Prime Minister and Jamaica Labour Party leader, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, issued a charge to labourites and indeed all right-thinking Jamaicans last evening in addressing a meeting in West Central St. James. He has urged us to protest, and this protest is not destructive in nature. The protest to which the Prime Minister and our party leader has called us is a protest to respond to and push back against the PNP's falsehoods, envy, and deceit. What the PNP is calling on the government to do is something that is wrong. It would be highly improper and irregular for the government to interfere or otherwise unduly insert itself into a process that is the sole prerogative of the Public Service Commission. The public should, quote, take sleep and mark that, end quote. As the opposition PNP is basically indicating to us, they are telegraphing to us what they would do and how they would operate were they to form the government in this country. Their administration would be amenable to, apparently, breach long-standing and well-established systems and procedures governing the appointment of senior executives in the government service. There is no proper, sound, or lawful ground or basis on which the Public Service Commission's appointment of Mr. Dennis Strong is to be rescinded. The Jamaica Labour Party is pushing back against the PNP and its destructive tendencies in the most strident, assertive, and vociferous manner. While the PNP misleads its supporters, we in the Jamaica Labour Party are committed to accurately informing and empowering our supporters. We encourage them to read widely, research things for themselves, and utilize the tools and technology we all have at our fingertips to empower themselves. It is within this context and against this backdrop that the Jamaica Labour Party rejects and denounces in the strongest terms today's unwarranted and politically contrived protest being staged by the opposition PNP. The PNP claims to be standing up for good governance when they themselves are the architects and proponents of bad governance. They claim to be rescuing Jamaica from corruption, when in fact they are the architects and masters of corruption in this country. In fact, many regard the PNP as the most corrupt political party in the Caribbean. As an example of the PNP's glaring historical and institutionally embedded political corruption, one may look to the Ministry of National Mobilization, led by its then controversial General Secretary, the late D.K. Duncan, following the 1976 general election. And of course, there was the attendant Pickersgill Committee of Political Purity, i.e., the Pickersgill Accreditation Committee. It was headed by the PNP's former chairman, Mr. Robert Bobby Pickersgill, and it was Gladstone Mills in a profound lecture some years ago who indicated that the Pickersgill Committee of Political Purity had the task of screening candidates to ensure that appointees under a PNP administration were of impeccable political purity. Gladstone Mills wrote, and I quote, Minister D.K. Duncan of the new Ministry of National Mobilization expressed the position without equivocation in relation to civil servants in that organization when he stated in Parliament, and Gladstone Mills is quoting then Minister D.K. Duncan as having said the following in the Parliament of Jamaica. In a Ministry of National Mobilization, in a socialist government, it is very difficult to employ somebody who is not a socialist. I make no apology. Every single employee in the Ministry of National Mobilization, his credentials as a democratic socialist are clear and pure. It has not escaped notice, ladies and gentlemen, and it is extremely ironic that the very location that the PNP is attending upon this morning is itself a profound reminder of PNP corruption. As members of the public, you may recall the infamous Hero Circle fencing project, which was shrouded in controversy and marred by allegations of corruption. The PNP and its leaders are hypocrites in our view and have no moral authority to accuse anyone of corruption. Indeed, the PNP is corruption personified. The protest action being staged by the opposition PNP is simply aimed at spreading propaganda, besmirching the reputation of someone who has served Jamaica with distinction over the years, whether it is in the private sector or in the public sector. By way of its protest, the PNP, at the expense of stability in the country and people's good name and reputation, is simply seeking to energize its base and boost support for its historically corrupt party as it limps toward the impending general elections. In a most vulgar, desperate, and despicable manner, the opposition, PNP, is using this protest to mislead its base and deceive other members of the public through reckless and irresponsibly engineered, contrived, and manufactured rage on the basis of a crisis that does not exist. It is as clear as day. Even the blind can see through the PNP. They are operating as though they own Jamaica. They are operating as though they hold a title to Jamaica. Now, the question that must be asked of the PNP on a day like today is, who died and willed Jamaica to you in the PNP? Who died and transferred a title to Jamaica to you as members and supporters of the PNP? Instead of uplifting people and presenting uplifting messages and ideas, the PNP seeks to foment division and destruction. For example, its embattled General Secretary, Dr. Dayton Campbell, indicated to PNP supporters a few weeks ago that when people go low, he goes lower. That is what he's inviting his party supporters to do. Engage in going lower rather than correcting them and imploring them to be their best selves. How could words like that have escaped the lips of a senior member in the leadership of the country's parliamentary opposition? What kind of message is that? What kind of example is the PNP setting for our children and our young people looking on? Jamaica is not a banana republic. The PNP should be condemned and denounced by all law-abiding, well-thinking, and well-intentioned Jamaicans. Again, the PNP has called for the government to rescind the appointment of Mr. Dennis Chung to serve as Chief Technical Director at the Financial Investigations Division is really a vulgar, brazen, and repugnant indication of how they would operate if they were serving as government. They would simply rescind appointments made by the Public Service Commission to senior executive posts in the civil service. The Dennis Strong appointment is not the only example of action on the part of the PNP to tear down hardworking, decent, and professional Jamaicans. The PNP, ladies and gentlemen, has a sordid and reprehensible track record of tearing down and besmirching the reputation of other distinguished public servants here in Jamaica. Among them are former Police Commissioner, Major General retired Anthony Anderson, Director of Public Prosecutions, Ms. Paula Llewellyn, Senior Superintendent of Police, Mr. Dennis Brooks, and Chief Executive Officer at the Firearm Licensing Authority, Mr. Shane Dalling. The PNP simply has more nerve, in our view, than a bad tooth. While they seek to pass themselves off as defenders of good governance, what they are actually calling for is, and they're doing so in a corrupt manner, is for the government to do something that is improper and irregular. We have not forgotten the many PNP corruption scandals over the years. Even in more recent times, the PNP-controlled Manchester Municipal Corporation has been embroiled in a $400 million corruption scandal, as well as MOCA having conducted raids on other PNP-controlled municipal corporations in recent times, such as the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation. And of course, there is the infamous Lawrence Rowe PNP hush money scandal, which involved an egregious audio recording of the PNP's embattled General Secretary Dayton Campbell explaining and seeking to justify the basis on which the KSAMC channeled funds to PNP operatives in divisions where by-elections are impending. Audio recording of the Mayor of Kingston, Mr. Andrew Swaby, also surfaced amid the Lawrence Rowe PNP hush money scandal. In that instance, the Kingston Mayor, Andrew Swaby, is heard explaining how he has channeled funds to PNP operatives in divisions that neighbor his Vineyard Town division in order to, quote, grill up the thing and gel up the thing. It bears reiterating, Jamaicans, that the PNP, based on its history and its very genetics, its DNA, has no moral authority to accuse, criticize, or otherwise berate anyone on the grounds of corruption. For the avoidance of any doubt, it is to be noted that, like any other Jamaican exercising his or her constitutional right to freedom of expression, Dennis Strong, given his skill sets, extensive experience, and considerable technical professional expertise, has contributed to public discussion programs and has been engaged by media over the years in his capacity as a financial analyst and a public affairs commentator to opine from time to time on pertinent issues. This is not limited to Dennis Strong. Several other persons in other spheres of national life have done the same thing. Like any other Jamaican, he had a right to apply for and be considered for any job for which he is suitably qualified. Any suggestion, therefore, that Dennis Strong's considered technical opinion and comments in his capacity as a financial analyst and indeed a public affairs commentator in media, along with his qualifications, render him unsuitable and unfit to assume his appointment as Chief Technical Director at the Financial Investigations Division, FID, in our view, is unwarranted, unreasonable, and represents a new law to which the PNP has sunk. But quite frankly, the PNP having sunk to a new level is concerning, is despicable, but not altogether surprising. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlon. I'm going to employ the services of Marlon's microphone and make a few brief comments then. It is a condemnation of the PNP's insistence that the administration improperly interferes in a process supervised by and coordinated by an independent body. The action taken by the PNP this morning in the vicinity of National Hero Circle is vulgar and inappropriate, and the administration will not be bullied into taking action which would represent a breach of due process. Members of the media, just before we take questions, I want to bring attention to a serious aspect of this matter as well. The Jamaica Labour Party condemns what we are advised are calls placed and messages sent by at least 4 senior members of the PNP and their surrogates to close associates of the Chief Technical Director of the FID, advising that in the interest of his family, he should decline the appointment. This action by senior members of the PNP is tantamount to inappropriate conduct and serious intimidation being leveled at a Jamaican who has served his country across various administrations. The PNP should cease and desist from the wanton act of intimidation, which is not only inappropriate, but offends due process and sends a chilling signal to members of the public service about how they intend to conduct themselves as they seek political power. We have information as well that the PNP has been attempting to apply pressure to current office holders in key and sensitive agencies, demanding that inappropriate action be taken and seeking to interfere in the conduct of their work. In the interest of preserving Jamaica's democratic processes and good order, it might be good if these office holders perhaps contemplate causing the necessary complaints to be made concerning what really is a corrupt act by the PNP in attempting to exercise undue influence over them. Regarding calls placed and messages sent to the close associates of the new FID technical director by senior PNP members, raising the spectre of the well-being of his family and the possibility of anarchy should he assume the post, we expect the PNP to deny it, but we do not make pronouncements we cannot support. We demand that the PNP commits to desist from this dangerous attempt to intimidate and interfere in the work of key office holders. Their conduct offends democratic processes in Jamaica and is indeed dangerous. As Senator Morgan did, we reiterate and call attention to the entire public sector to the fact that the PNP's sense of entitlement has seen them develop a track record of targeting Jamaicans who have served well across various sectors. Paula Llewellyn was led an office which has prosecuted Jamaicans of all political persuasions. Our country will recall that offensive comment by Dayton Campbell, Paula, Gaia Yard. That's how we propose to speak to the first woman to serve as DPP in Jamaica. Uncouth, insulting, and low. The PNP also proposed to attack the appointment of Lieutenant General Rocky Mead, a man who has served across administrations in senior positions. They also attacked Major General Anthony Anderson, a man who has served across administrations. He was attacked as he attempted to assist the administration in laying the framework for the now 44% decline in murders. So affiliate groups of the PNP called for his resignation and demanded that he be fired. And now the baseless attack on Dennis Strong was served across administrations. And on my way here, I saw a clip, I believe, on the website of a newspaper where a PNP candidate, Isaac Buchanan, who it's a matter of public record, is a convicted drug smuggler, cocaine smuggler, and has served time in the United States. He stated on a political platform that Dennis Strong will not and should not serve as Chief Technical Director of the FID. How ironic, how asinine, how contemptuous of the sensibilities of the Jamaican people. But this is the conduct of the PNP. This is a trend, an established DNA where they attack public servants and key office holders who they feel they cannot control. Indeed, we have obtained information as well of several office holders who have been contacted by the PNP and issued various warnings. We take note as well that in the instant case, Dennis Strong has had to be given swift police protection despite being qualified and appointed via due process to a job. This is the kind of behavior by the PNP that should not be countenanced by any well-thinking Jamaican, including members of civil society. And we have no doubt that members of the public sector will, as the proverb says, take sleep and mark death. And in concluding, the PNP's response to this appointment of Dennis Strong after a valid process coordinated by the PSC indicates that they fear anyone who might take a sober, professional, and fair approach to matters of the state. It indicates that they are desperate, that they are in a panic, because they have no plan or no message. The only plan is to tell lies on the government of Prime Minister Andrew Holness in a futile bid to distract from the good work of the Jamaica Labour Party administration. The PNP's approach is clear for all to see. They have no message and no plan. Hence, they have contrived outrage and sought to distract from the Jamaica Labour Party administration's achievements, from the lowest unemployment levels in Jamaica's history, the lowest incidence of poverty in Jamaica's history. And they are seeking to distract the attention of the population from a 44% decline in murders, the lowest murder rate we have seen in Jamaica at this point of the year over the past few decades. But I reiterate that the Jamaica Labour Party administration will not be bullied. We will not be phased. We will continue to do right by the Jamaican people. And we invite the Jamaican people to know that the PNP was not moved to protest when the security forces and customs caught over approximately 240 deadly weapons which criminals were seeking to bring into this country. They did not seek to protest and take to the streets when a 9-year-old was brutally killed. They did not seek to take to the streets of Jamaica when Melissa Silvera was gunned down and a senior member of the PNP was taken into custody and accused of murder. They have sought to take to the streets of Jamaica and protest, to force the administration of the day to take inappropriate action and intervene in a transparent process supervised by the Public Services Commission of Jamaica. That is the ethos, the modus operandi of the current PNP. We trust that the people of Jamaica will take careful note. Thank you. I open the floor for questions.
What do you make of allegations put forward? What do you make of allegations put forward by the PNP suggesting an attempt tantamount to essentially watering down the selection process to allow for the appointment of Dennis Strong?
I have heard the allegation and I have noted that no evidence has been put forward by the PNP to support the allegation. That's one. The fact of the matter is that the key point is Dennis Strong qualified to serve as FID Chief Technical Director? That's one. And two, have there been individuals who have served as FID Chief Technical Director with similar qualifications as Dennis Strong? The answer is yes. At least two individuals with masters in accounting have served as FID Chief Technical Director or acted in the post. At no time did the PNP raise any objection to this. That in and of itself points out their conveniently changing principles and their hypocrisy. Thank you.
And just one more. There are those equating the concerns raised about Dennis Strong's appointment to those raised by the Parliament, the governing Parliament, over the appointment of Ronif Lawrence as the acting Interim Commission Director of Investigations. What do you make of that concern?
Well, the basis of the objection to the individual who was appointed as acting Director of Corruption Prosecution is one, concern about a series of what we view as unreasonable and questionable actions taken by the Commission, and two, the public declaration by the General Secretary of the PNP describing the individual as a friend of 20 years. Indeed, the General Secretary of the PNP attended upon the wedding of the individual and appeared to be among the groom's party. To compare this matter concerning Dennis Strong and the individual who was appointed to act as Corruption Prosecution Director at the Integrity Commission is to compare oranges and I dare say grapes. I assure you, Dennis Strong was not at the wedding of Andrew Holness or Dr. Horace Chan. Therefore, the conflict of interest raised by the government parliamentary leaders concerning the appointment of the individual who is acting as Corruption Prosecution Director is valid and in no way reduces the impact of or the soundness of our objection to the sordid and despicable approach taken by the PNP to the appointment of Mr. Dennis Strong, who has a record of service across administrations, including serving on the board of the NSWMA, tapped by the Simsimila administration, and serving at several financial entities at high levels, including Daring, Bunting, and Golding. Is it that Peter Bunting and Mark Golding have taken the approach that Mr. Strong is good to assist with supervising their money, but he's not good enough to serve his country? Is that the approach they have taken? That question must be answered.
PNP have reached out to close associates of Dennis Strong and are threatening him and his family. And if that is the case, has the police been informed, and what branch of the police force is investigating these threats?
What I have indicated is that the Jamaica Labour Party is condemning moves by at least 4 senior members of the PNP to contact close associates of Dennis Strong and indicate that in the interest of his family and in preventing anarchy, you might want to contemplate not taking the job. Whether you want to receive that as menacing words, which would be suitable for intervention by the police, is a matter for you. If we stand by our information and we insist that the PNP take a step back and reconsider the conduct of some of its senior members.
So has the police been informed? Can you share that with us?
I have no knowledge regarding whether there has been intervention by law enforcement concerning this matter. But the essence of what we are putting forward is that contact has been made with close associates of the chief technical director of the FID, by senior members of the PNP, and the jargon used is in the interest of his family. You might want to reconsider. We condemn this as a vulgar attempt of intimidation, a vulgar attempt at intimidation by the PNP, which should be condemned by all members of society, including civil society.
And final question. There have been concerns raised that the law enforcement requirement for the job was removed the second time it was advertised. What is the JLP's reaction to this removal of what some described as a key component of this role?
As my colleague Senator Fitz Henley articulated earlier, there are persons who, in the past, have held the post of Chief Technical Director at the FID who did not necessarily possess qualifications or experience, specifically along the lines of law enforcement. But separate and apart from that, it is to be reiterated and understood that it is the Public Service Commission that superintends, through the Office of the Services Commission, the recruitment of the respective officers, including in this case, the Chief Technical Director at FID, as they do from time to time in relation to permanent secretaries or Chief Technical Director in ministries across government. So just to be very clear, not dissimilar to a procuring entity, it is an entity such as the Public Service Commission, which is seeking to avail itself of the services of a member of the public, that makes a determination as to the skills, qualifications, and competencies for a job that it considers appropriate. The fact that there has been a variation, as it were, that's a matter for the Public Service Commissioner through the Office of the Services Commission to speak specifically to. But that, however, does not negate the fact that Mr. Dennis Chung comes to this assignment, to this appointment, being suitably and eminently qualified, having regard to his skill sets, his education and training, and indeed how he has served in several capacities, which includes corporate governance and, of course, public administration in this country. He's eminently qualified in our view.
And to add to that, I saw an article on the website of the Jamaica Gleaner, which made the point that at least 2 individuals have served at the top level of the FID, and they have had a significant experience in law enforcement. What the article did not point out is that at least 5 individuals have served either in a permanent or acting capacity as Chief Technical Director of the FID, and they have had no law enforcement experience. One, an accountant. The other, a chartered accountant. Another individual qualification in business administration. Another individual qualification in economics. One has qualification in ICT, and another attorney at law. I am pretty sure. I know that members of the media, an important function or part of the estate's dispatch of its duties is research and giving context to the public, which the various media houses propose to inform. I am pretty sure that that context that I just outlined, which is available via simple Google search, was an oversight on the part of the Gleaner. But I have no doubt that in the future, that information will be made available to the Jamaican people. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jamila Maitland. Honest question. The removal of the law enforcement criteria at a time where financial crimes seems to be, proliferated, and where the public also feels as if persons accused, charged of financial crimes, receive a slap on the wrist, convicted, and also get these cushy sentences. Does the JLP feel as if the removal of this criteria will make the public almost, will make the FID in of itself seem watered down? Because yes, we have seen a few persons in the past acquiring the role without that law enforcement criteria, but at this time, the removal of it just seems a little bit fortuitous, if you want to add, at a time where this crime is just rampant. And two, I have another question for you. I've seen in the past where there have been almost always rejection of reports by the Auditor General, the Integrity Commission. What assurance can the JLP give that when a report is published from the FID and includes persons on both sides and including the JLP, that this report will be accepted? Those are my two questions.
Thank you for those questions, Jamelia. Senator Fitz will attend to the second of your two questions. In relation to your first question, just to be very clear, in terms of the organizational structures and units of Jamaica's Financial Investigations Division, which operates under the auspices of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Yes, those units and systems remain the same today as they were yesterday and will be tomorrow. So just to be very clear, Dennis Chung has been appointed to serve as the Chief Technical Director in the Financial Investigations Division, which means essentially that he will have direction and control over the entity insofar as strategic direction and leadership there at the entity. It does not suggest that there is any watering down, any diminishing, or in our view, any erosion of the capabilities, the capacity, and of course, the structures and units there at the FID. So just to be very clear, whereas the FID has a Office of Chief Technical Director, the FID is also served by such units as the Financial Investigations Team, FIT, the Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU, its Legal Services Unit, its Information Technology Unit, its Planning and Administrative Services Unit, and its Asset Management Unit. There is none of these key units that serve the FID in pursuit of alleged financial crimes or alleged financial irregularities, and of course, in pursuit of its fundamental mandate that would be undermined or compromised as it is at present. As I said before, in attending upon the response to this question, the FID, in terms of its supporting infrastructure, its systems and units, remain the same today as it was yesterday and will be tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. Regarding the second question, am I understanding that you're asking what assurance can the Jamaica Labour Party give that when the FID does an investigation, publishes its findings, that we'll accept the findings? Is that accurate?
And I'd be specific in relation to the Prime Minister's investigation as well, into his statutory declaration. I'm saying there has been a history of when the Auditor General, the Integrity Commission, and this includes government agencies as well, the findings are just not accepted despite these lengthy investigations. And I would want to believe as well that this investigation will also take some time. based on what you've just described, would the JLP accept some of these findings and not just reject them wantonly as how we've been seeing?
Well, every Jamaican, whether you're the Prime Minister or you're a Master Joe or Miss Jane, has a right to their good name and has a constitutional right to challenge the findings of any entity if there's solid basis to do so. That's one. The second part of the question, though, the FID is not a commission of parliament. The FID is a division within the Ministry of Finance. I've never heard of the FID doing an investigation and publishing the findings. I've never heard of it. So the question appears a bit redundant to me. I really haven't heard of it.
Okay, so I'll be a little bit clearer. So going forward, the FID has made a lot of investigations. There is one in particular where the public is concerned about, and this is the one including the Prime Minister's statutory declaration. And my question is, whatever these findings are and wherever they should go, is the JLP prepared to accept those findings based on the caliber of checks and balances that you've just described?
Again, every individual has a right, a constitutional right, to presumption of innocence, and they also have a right in terms of due process of defending themselves, their reputation, and their good name. The Jamaica Labour Party is not in the business of attempting to diminish the right of any individual to not accept the findings of any entity, if in fact that individual feels wronged. Ian Hales took the office of the Contractor General to court. Yes, Dr. Omar Davies and the PNP administration took the office of the Contractor General to court because they were not convinced that the findings of the then anti-corruption agency was valid. We had a matter where the office of the Contractor General investigated the alleged Daring, Bunting and Golding sweetheart deal. And the findings of the then anti-corruption agency was that there were deals consummated via processes which were improper and irregular. And the Office of the Contractor General raised the spectre of the sole source process being a possible conduit for connected individuals to benefit inappropriately from government contracts. And two gentlemen who now aspire to lead Jamaica contested the findings, publicly contested the findings of the Office of the Contractor General. That is their right. That is the right of every single Jamaican. Siobhan.
Just two quick final ones for me. The first is, even before this matter of Dennis Chung was raised by the People's National Party, Peter Bunting, suggested that the FID was being starved of resources, almost in a manner of which to suggest that they were being deliberately starved of resources to avoid an investigation into the Prime Minister's statutory declarations. And finally, if you were in a position to advise Mr. Chung as he takes up this appointment, what would be your advice to him, considering all that has taken place?
I am not in the business of giving advice to a Jamaican who has been appointed to a key post, which has important duties and is to be independent in the exercise of his duties. It's not my place, our place, to issue advice to that individual. Regarding the allegations of Peter Bunting, they are false, they are not true. They are similar to the allegation Mr. Bunting used the Parliament to make, suggesting that work was stopped on a project in his constituency, a school, and the contractor was starved of monies to complete the project by the administration. That's what Bunting suggested in the Parliament of Jamaica. The contractor has since entered the public domain and said what Bunting suggested to the Parliament is false and in fact not true, and he has been paid. I therefore advise the public that when Bunting speaks, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Cannot be believed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the media, for your patience. I see another question emanating from Television Jamaica. We'll accommodate that one question.
Thank you so
Then
much.
call time on the media conference.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah, not a problem.
this is unrelated. The status of the North Central St. Andrew seat. Recently, the JLP would have sent out something to say that Carl Samuda is no longer contesting the seat, and we want to find out, have Senator Delano Seawright and Christian Tavares, have they re-entered? Have they indicated that they will like to run again for that seat?
I cannot speak definitively on whether the two gentlemen have indicated an interest or renewed their interest. What I can say is that the processes of candidate selection for North Central St. Andrew and North East Manchester, those processes are proceeding apace, and at the appropriate time, I am pretty sure that an update will come from the Secretariat of the Jamaica Labour Party. Thank you.